This is a selection from Edmund Okocha's The Cross and the Eagle. The night was cold, and a light mist clung to the windows, refracting the soft glow of the streetlights outside. The small apartment was tastefully decorated, its simplicity belying the careful preparation that had gone into the evening's event. A round table, draped in a simple linen cloth, stood in the center of the room, its surface adorned with steaming plates of food. The aroma of roasted meat, herbs, and freshly baked bread filled the space, creating an inviting atmosphere that further disarmed the men. They arrived just as planned, faces alight with anticipation. One of them, shorter and stockier, had a lecherous grin plastered across his face. The other, taller and leaner, with a scar running down his cheek, wore a smirk that hinted at countless nights of debauchery and vice. "Welcome, gentlemen," she greeted, her voice a low, sultry murmur that wrapped around them like silk. "Please, have a seat. Tonight, I'm here to ensure you're thoroughly entertained." The men exchanged glances, their gazes sweeping over her with an unbridled hunger. They had been anticipating this night since Father O'Sullivan first dangled it in front of them, hinting at a woman whose charms would surpass their wildest expectations. They had no idea that they were sitting before the very same woman they had seen him with before, the nun who had passed them on the streets of Rome. "Where's the good father?" the shorter man asked as he tore off a chunk of bread, bits of it falling from his fingers. "Thought he'd be here to make sure everything was blessed." A light chuckle escaped her lips. "Father O'Sullivan has other matters to attend to tonight, but I'm here to make sure you're well taken care of." Their laughter filled the small space, confident and reckless. They ate with gluttonous delight, savoring each bite, each sip of the expensive wine she poured for them. Their guards were down completely, lulled by the richness of the food, the smoothness of the drink, and the promise of what was to come. They devoured the meal, their conversation becoming louder and cruder as the evening wore on. The shorter man's eyes never left her figure, his gaze lingering on her every movement. The taller man leaned back in his chair, his posture relaxed, a self-satisfied grin on his lips. "You're a good host," the taller man remarked, raising his glass in a mock toast. "But we didn't come here just for dinner. When does the real entertainment start?" A wicked smile tugged at her lips as she stepped closer, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Soon," she murmured. "Very soon." But then something changed. The taller man frowned, his hand instinctively moving to his stomach. A strange, twisting pain began to spread, sharp and insistent. He shifted in his seat, confusion clouding his eyes. What did you—" The shorter man grunted, dropping his fork as a sudden wave of nausea hit him. He doubled over, clutching his abdomen, his face contorted in pain. What's happening?" he gasped, his voice rising in panic. They tried to stand, but their legs buckled beneath them, their limbs refusing to obey. Their breaths came in short, desperate gasps, beads of sweat forming on their foreheads as their bodies betrayed them. The taller man's eyes widened in terror as he looked up at her, realization dawning too late. "You," he choked out, but the words died on his lips as a violent convulsion racked his frame. He fell back against his chair, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. The shorter man managed a strangled cry before his body stiffened, then slumped forward, his head hitting the table with a dull thud. The room fell silent, save for the rasping, labored breaths of the dying men. She watched them dispassionately, her expression unreadable. When the last ragged breath escaped the taller man's lips, she reached for her phone, dialing a number with deliberate precision. The line connected almost instantly. "It's done," she said softly, her voice calm and steady. There was a pause on the other end, then a quiet murmur of approval. She listened for a moment longer before nodding and ending the call. Slipping the phone back into her pocket, she turned and looked at the lifeless bodies slumped across the table. "May God have mercy on your souls," she whispered, her tone devoid of any emotion. With one last glance around the room, she stepped out, locking the door behind her. Outside, the cold night air greeted her, and she took a deep breath, the tension melting away as she walked down the empty street. Father O'Sullivan had always known exactly what strings to pull, what pressure points to push. And now, 2 more threats had been erased, leaving him free to proceed with his plans, unburdened by loose ends. She disappeared into the darkness, a shadow among shadows, leaving behind only silence and death.